So, hello everyone. We're going to split this up into two pieces. I'm going to start with respect to academic AI tools and how I evaluate them. And if you're not sure what I mean by academic AI tools, don't worry, you will by the time I'm finished. And Heather will be talking about general AI tools and how she uses them. Okay. So there's three basic things that I'm going to talk about here. And that is the types of academic AI tools I have looked at, the information I used to evaluate the tools, and then how did I organize the results? Okay. So there are three different types of academic AI tools that I looked at. There are tools that suggest articles related to a specific topic. So you do a search for a topic and it says, oh, you might want to look at these articles. Some examples of these are connected papers, which creates a web of interconnected articles for you, Keenius, and Research Rabbit. Tools that summarize materials written by others. So these, generally, you actually have to feed the information from the articles into these to get information out of it. Scholarcy is it provides you with note cards based on the article or information that you fed into it. Notebook LM will provide you with actually, Notebook LM generates an AI podcast. This got a lot of press a few months ago because it generates an AI podcast about the topic. When I was testing this, I actually popped in the Wikipedia page on Orson Welles. And so then you get a little podcast thing, and they're like, today we're going to talk to you about Orson Welles, who worked in film and theater and did all kinds of things. And they're AI generated voices as well. Um, and then there are tools that both summarize materials and suggest articles for you. And the majority of the tools I looked at were of this type. So then the question becomes, what does one ask about the tools to try to figure out if they are good tools and useful for the things that you want them to do? So the first question is, and especially since these were tools that did different types of tasks, first of all, what does this tool do? What does it do? What is it telling you it can do? The second thing is, what does this tool cost? Some of the tools I mentioned on the previous page are on the previous slide are free. Others are available through university subscriptions. Um, but others still, you would have to pay for either a personal account or an institutional account to use them as frequently as the folks who created the tool would like you to use them. Where is the article information coming from? And in most cases, this is um, the AI tool is scraping something on the internet. So sometimes it is scraping open access articles. Sometimes it is scraping databases like Crossref. But it is always sort of gathering information from the internet sort of automatically. And then the question that follows from there is the article information that the tool gives correct? And I went into this looking at a 10 article sample. So if it suggests 150 articles, I don't look at all 150 articles to see if they're correct. I just take the first 10 and I see, is this information correct? For example, are the citations correct? If it's classifying this as an article, this is a book chapter, is the classification correct? Is the page number correct? Does this document actually exist? In most cases, yes. But sometimes things are misclassified. For example, a blog post is misclassified as a scholarly article. Or somehow one of these AIs found a term paper that somebody posted about on the internet. Um, so is the article information that the tool gives correct? And then what are the potential downsides of this tool? For example, in talking about the tools that require you to put information into the AI in order to generate note cards or some sort of summary device, is that requesting contributory copyright infringement because you are putting other people's work into the AI without the permission of the creators of that information. So all of these are things that can be considered in evaluating the different tools that are out there. So organizing the results, the nice thing about asking the same questions about each tool is that it's very easy to put together a chart or a table to organize the answers to those questions. So, and I can actually show you. This is the completed chart. And you can see it's fairly lengthy because I was trying to be specific. I'm not going to go through all of this because that would take far more time than we have, but I will share the link with anyone who's interested. And the link is indeed in the slides as well. Okay. And now I will turn things over to Heather. Heather, you are muted.
You. Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm going to talk to you about general AI tools and how I've used them. I am not the biggest user of AI, but I have a few things that I've used it for. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what I have, recently we've redone the library website and had a lot of images we needed alt text for. And sometimes when I look at an image, all I think is, well, it's a tree. And my brain kind of blanks. So I've used alt text for images. I've used it for tone modification if I want to edit my text to be more or less formal, make it more writing for the web. I've dabbled with workshop planning, creating an Instagram post, and report generation, and I can show you those. Next, please. So, generating alt text for web images. I've got this image that ended up on our website. Copilot, Gemini, and Perplexity all gave me slightly different alt text when the prompt was give me alt text for a website. And what I've done is take the best of those three generated alt text, modify it to make it fit what I think is best. But at least it gives me somewhere to start. Next slide, please. Tone modification. I've used Perplexity, Copilot, Gemini, and Goblin Tools AI to help me rewrite things to be more formal, active versus passive voice, to make it more clear, more exciting, more brief, more informal. And the first three tools, not including Goblin Tools, you can rewrite considering an audience of undergraduate, college-age students, or the general public. So you can kind of add the audience into the voice that you're choosing there. Next slide, please. And these are some of the prompts. These next three slides are some prompts I have used or played with using to help me develop something. Like this one is a workshop planning where I can add length, level, and program right into the prompt. So I've got the prompt and I can always change out the length, level, and program to match my current needs. Next slide. And similarly, creating an Instagram post for an upcoming event. So I can change out the event name, the library name, the date of the event, and it's always going to add the link to our workshops page and use the event description I provide. Next slide, please. And the last one I've used a couple times to help me generate a report from a CSV. So something like Google Sheets or Excel document saved as a CSV format, where I tell it what sections I want and what subsections I want based on the information in that CSV, and it'll give me a result that I will probably have to make pretty, clean up. Um, but that's something I've dabbled in. Last slide, please. So if you have any questions for me or Amber at this point, and there's our contact information if you want to get a hold of either of us.
Thank you very much, Amber and Heather. I'm thinking we'll take one or two questions in between presentations, and then we'll use the remaining time for any questions. So if anyone has a question, and maybe we can remove the shared screen so I can see everyone. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, would you raise your hand so it's more logical? BJ, go ahead. Mute.
I made a comment. I really like all these examples. I think they could quickly adapt into exercises and assignments with learners. And I wonder if either of you have used the examples that you shared when supporting a patron of the library. Let me be more clear about that. With them, use these approaches with the patron that you were supporting at the time you were supporting them. Just curious.
I haven't used any particular prompts with patrons while I was supporting them. I've used them more for my background work personally.
Yeah, same here.
Going once, going twice. All right, if you're mulling it over, we'll have time afterward. So our next presenter is Casey Koons, who's the Open Scholarship Librarian here at UMaine Libraries. And Casey will be discussing how GPT, can enhance and speed up your work. Specifically, I think he'll be speaking about scripting for automation and accessibility.
All right, hi. Do I sound okay? Okay, I've got a couple of different microphones I can use. So that's the first question. The second question is, let's see if this works. So are you seeing my slides now? You're not.
No.
Are you seeing like the Zoom? Yeah.
It says screen sharing, but we're not yet. Not seeing any slides yet. There we go.
Okay, so apologies, it'll take me a tick or two just to move some things around. Where the heck did it go? Right. Sorry, Zoom is giving me trouble.
If anybody reconsidered and has a question while Casey's setting up, please feel free to raise your hand.
Oh. I see the problem. It's just, okay, I'll make it work. I was hoping it could share my whole computer so I could bounce between applications, but it seems to only want to use applications. So well, I'll break it into two parts. So, sorry for the delay, everyone. I'm Casey Koons. I'm the Open Scholarship librarian here at UMaine, and for a long time in my work, I've been an avid user of Python and other scripting tools to help automate my work, and an advocate for faculty and staff to also embrace that. And so I wanted to talk about how large language models can really be a way to uh, open the door and really allow you to get a lot of stuff done with Python and other scripting languages without having to invest even a small amount of time, right? And
Casey, pardon me for interrupting. I'm hearing a clicking sound. I'm not sure if anyone else is, but is anyone else hearing it?
hold on.
It might be your mouse just moving it. Maybe it's extra sensitive.
I think it should be. Well, now it can't be heard, or I can't be heard now.
Now we
Better?
don't. Yeah, now we don't hear it.
Now you can hear me. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so a lot of folks that I talk to and try to sell on the idea of, hey, you should use some Python, right, are justifiably averse about, oh, well, I don't have time to learn how to code. I don't have time because coding is really hard and deep and challenging, right? And I like this analogy, right? Like to differentiate the difference between coding and scripting. They both use scripting languages, right, like Python, that can be used to make big applications, right, like that can be used to make all kinds of things. The difference is in what you're making, right? Like when you're coding, you might be making a very long, structured novel, very important, right, like difficult writing project. Scripting is more like making a shopping list, right? They can be quick, they can be dirty. If they do the job, it's good. We're not trying for perfection. We're trying to make it just sort of work, right? And so what large language models like ChatGPT, like DeepSeek and Claude, and there's dozens of them these days, allow us to do is we can ask it to generate these scripts for us, right? We can tell it what we want the script to do, and it will generate the actual Python code for us to run. So we can think of problems that we want to automate on our computer, right? Our computer to be smarter, do things automatically for us. And not even have to learn any Python or just a tiny bit of Python. Some common tasks, right, that you might find, right, like a use for this kind of scripting is like batch file renaming, right? If you've got a bunch of files, right, on your computer, right, and you want them all to have a consistent sort of naming scheme, right? Like you can automatically rename a whole bunch of files. That's great if you've got tons of files. You've got a bunch of files that are messy, right? Like you can make a script that can organize them based on type or based on a keyword or even based on some text in the file itself, right? Like, you know, you could have a whole folder of student papers, right? And you could have Python go and find the student's name and put all the same student's work in one folder, right? This one I thought was interesting, automated email drafting, right? Like I remember when I was an educator and sending emails out to all my students about, you know, how they did on the midterm, how they did on the last test, was a very tedious, laborious process. So being able to automate, right, like generating personalized emails, right, to each student, being able to grab the grade from an Excel spreadsheet, so the grade's right in there, could be a really great sort of thing. And as Heather pointed out, I work as the accessibility librarian here, and so I do a lot of that alt text generation, right, where I've got tons of images I have to make alt text for, and that is another great thing that these AIs can do. I won't go through this, but I will share these slides. I just came up with a couple of sort of discipline-specific things that these scripts could be used for, such as imagery sizing, data cleanup. I use Python for data cleanup all the time, and also things like web scraping, right? Like I've also done this, right? You can use Python to go on the web and maybe go on to a public database of, say, newspapers or Wikipedia or something, right, and go through thousands of websites and grab data from it and put that, into a form like an Excel spreadsheet that you can use and you can manipulate, right? So some really powerful stuff you can do and not have to, and really, really lean on the large language model, right, to create the scripts for you. So the last thing I want to show you an example of this. So I'm going to stop and start the share again. I apologize for that. But I wanted to show you something else. Okay, so now are you seeing this little robot in the white screen? Looks like you are. Yeah. Okay, so I made a couple of examples. So here I asked, I actually asked DeepSeek, a large language model, to create that Python script that will take names and grades and create the email message. And it surprised me because as I was sort of thinking, right, like it would sort of generate the text for me and that I'd still have to do the emailing, right? Like, so it would just give me some text to put in my Gmail. But it went further than that, right? Like it was like, no, Python can send emails. Python can use SMTP and it can send the emails. And so it created a whole script that would take a, fictitious Excel spreadsheet where I had the grades, the student's name, and it would create a message, and then it would do the email, right? And then also a nice thing about these tools is that they will often do this explanation, right? It tells you how the features of the script works. And given the conversational nature of these sort of large language models, the way you can chat with them, you can ask it for clarification. You can ask it, well, what does this function do? What does this bit of code do? Right. And it will explain it, right? Like, so it can help you to learn, right? Like, and in the event you want to make changes, right? You can obviously tell it to make the changes and it will make the changes. But it can also help you in the case that you're tracking down a bug or something. And this was another example I did. This is an alt text example. So I got this picture here and I asked Google Gemma to create alt text for it according to the WCAG 2.2 guidelines, right? And again, it went above and beyond, right? It gave me option one, like a nice, concise one, right? Option two, more detailed if context is important, right? Then it gave me some rationale for why it chose what it chose and some notes on those two different standards. Am I using WCAG 2.2 success 1A or 1C, right? So that's examples of these kinds of things. But what I wanted to show you in the last minute and a half of time I have is that I did all of this stuff locally on this computer. And that's part of the reason why I've been having some issues with Zoom, because this is not my work computer, it's my personal computer. This is a program right here that's called LM Studio. And it lets you run these large language models locally on your own computer. That means you're not signing into a company website, right? Having to give them your Google address, right? Like having to give them all of your data, letting them scrape everything that you ask it, right? Like, and put it into some sort of thing, right? It also personally alleviates some of my concerns over the ethical use of these things from an environmental side, right? I did these before this presentation for a reason. These took some time, right? They did not go lickety fast the way they do when you log in to the websites. And that makes sense because this computer I'm using is not a big data center that has dozens of GPUs, but it still got the job done. It just took 2 minutes instead of, a handful of seconds, right? And so I wanted to share that with you. It's something that I've only recently discovered, recently started using, experimenting, but I'm really excited about this. I think it, like I said, it deals with a lot of my concerns over privacy and over energy use when it comes to these tools, and also gives me a lot of ability to customize the tools and get them to work the way that I want. And for my last point I'll make about this is I've talked about DeepSeek a lot. DeepSeek is a really exciting large language model that came out of a Chinese company, and it is open source. And so you can, in LM Studio here, I've got a version of DeepSeek, right, like that I can load in, right? It's loading there. This is the only way I would advise you to use DeepSeek. Now, I don't have any reason to doubt the integrity of the company DeepSeek. I think they're excellent engineers. I think the work that they've done is fantastic, right? It is a very capable large language model, particularly one that works very efficiently, so it doesn't need as much energy to do great stuff. But insofar as it is a Chinese company in the nation of China, given the information privacy laws in China, anything you go on deepseek.com and ask the web app is accessible to the Chinese government according to the information laws. I'm not saying the company wants to give it to them, but they have no choice, right? Like, so for data privacy concerns, I wouldn't advise you to go online and use DeepSeek, but it's still, it is open source and it's a great tool, so you can use it locally. Any questions?
Megan.
Hi, this is Megan Doyle. I'm the digital archivist at Bowdoin College.
Hi.
Hi. Part of the reason that I've sort of been hesitant, I don't know Python, and I've been hesitant to use AI in this way, because I don't feel like I have the knowledge to sort of proofread or, review what it spits out. It's just gonna, and I like this feature, obviously, of being able to ask the chatbot about how it works and all of that. But I guess I'm I'm mostly afraid of sort of breaking something or doing something irreversible by using a script that either the AI didn't create properly or that I didn't give it a sufficient prompt for, that kind of thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have any advice about sort of how to maybe test things, or, oh, we're not going to break it because of this reason. I don't know if you have any take on that. I'm interested.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I my biggest sort of answer to that general sort of area of questions is that, like a lot of things with these chatbots, making a Python script to solve a problem is a very iterative process, right? Like, I've sugarcoated it a little here, right? Indicating that you can ask DeepSeek to make you a Python script. It gives it to you, it runs, it works. That happens sometimes, right? Like, but more often than not, the script doesn't work, right? Like, because there's a little problem with it. And so you do have to do a little bit of debugging, but you can do that in conversation with the chatbot. You can basically tell it, like, my computer gave me this error, right? Like, and give it the error, and it'll respond, oh, I see, right? Like, I'll fix it. There's also the fact here that generally these tools will do what's known as commenting the code. So you can see here these hash marks. So it shows you in the Python code what each sort of section of code is doing, right? Like, this section here is going to open the Python, or is going to open the CSV file and get the grades, right? This here is this is where it sort of decides what is it going to say, right? This is the bit that connects to the email server, right? And you can ask it, right? Like, so to your question as to is it safe, I'm going to go ahead and ask DeepSeek, could you tell me if this is safe, or potentially if there are dangers to using this kind of script. And we'll get it thinking. One of the things I like about DeepSeek is that it's what's known as a rational large language model. So it actually sort of puzzles over your question. You can see that this is all of the thought that it did when it made my script in the first place. It took about a minute and a half. And right now it's doing the thinking about the safety and potential dangers. Chad?
Hi. Well, this is exciting. I would like to know about the kinds of resources that you are finding you need to be able to run an open source version locally, like CPU resources and memory needed. Compound question, the next one is how does it compare to other models, to online models, ChatGPT, something like that, as far as output?
Certainly. Yes, you do, like, the better hardware that you have, the more powerful a model you can run locally on your own hardware. Particularly, the thing that can really give you more performance, allow you to run more powerful models, is your visual RAM or your VRAM associated with your graphics processor. This is the reason why, like, ChatGPT has data centers where they have thousands of NVIDIA 4090 GPUs set up in server racks, right? In order to answer everybody's questions, right? So you are going to be limited in terms of what your graphics card can do, what your CPU can do. It's going to limit the basically the complexity of the large language model you can do. One of the main reasons why I am hosting this on my personal device is that this little laptop is a gaming laptop, so it has a dedicated GPU, and it can support this version of DeepSeek, which is 14B. That stands for 14 billion neural connections, right? On my work computer, I can still use a version of DeepSeek, but 8B is about as good as I can get it to work. As far as how good they are, it really depends on the model. There are, like I said, thousands of different models. They've been tuned for different purposes. Some of them are older than others. So it really, like, I'm still just beginning to sort of experiment to see, like, what kind of performance I can get out of it. But I have been impressed so far, right? Like, I've been impressed by how a lot of the things that I used to go on ChatGPT, or I used to go on deepseek.com, or Perplexity, or many other tools, right? I've been giving it to this and paying the time cost. That's the main cost, right? It takes longer, right? It goes much slower. So having the patience to let it cook, right? Like, and I've been largely pleased. But obviously, like, you are taking a hit, right? Like, it's not going to be as good as the online tools because they have way more resources than you can field at home.
Thank you,
But
Casey. Oh,
yeah.
pardon, you can continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I was just going to say a final thing is, like, I've talked a lot about DeepSeek. One of the reasons why I like it and is because it does a lot more on less, right? It can do ChatGPT 4.0 level performance on like a tenth the resources that ChatGPT uses. And so that makes it a good fit for, like, using it on a local system like this one, right? Because I don't have as many resources.